Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Welcome to today's very special episode. I would even say a counteroffensive special, but I don't want to get ahead of myself because too many unknowns yet. But some things we do know. As I explained to you before in all of the different videos that I did on this channel, when we were expecting a counteroffensive to start, one of the main things that we would be looking for as an indicator is a preparation for the artillery with artillery strikes. Now, we've seen artillery strikes happening on the major logistics points for quite a while now. But what I was saying before, that what we would expect is that there would be a more massive one starting, striking not just the specific centers when it would be like 1, 2, 3 big strikes, but we would see a pattern of these strikes happening a lot more frequently. And that is indeed what we're happening. Now, we obviously need to be aware that this might be a diversion tactics just to get Russians on their toes. But we've heard recently that General Zaluzhny has posted a tweet where he was saying about the fact that the time has come to take back what's ours, which is with no back thought to it at all. But generally speaking, what we have as the news is that around the area of Mariupol, around the area of Berdyansk, and around generally this area at all, right now there's been report after report after report in the past 24 hours, and still happening, a report after report after report after report, shelling, destroyed. Not just one time, but in the past couple of days, we've seen especially Berdyansk and Mariupol to be specifically targeted multiple times with Storm Shadow missiles that Ukraine actually reported are quite efficient. But now we're seeing strikes are also happening in other areas, like for smaller targets. So we definitely are seeing a significant intensification of strikes. Now, how long this will go, the expert opinion differs on that. Some say it will happen maybe overnight, and then Ukraine will, for example, strike in the morning. Then there are other experts says that for Ukraine, for this event and their advancement to be valid, they would need to strike it for a good 4 or 5 days like this. So potentially this week starts a massive destruction campaign on the Russian assets. We will see. But the point is that today we've seen a significant change from the pattern, what was happening before. So it is important to note that, and especially because we've heard that Ukrainians have already stated that they have enough sufficient equipment to conduct a counteroffensive. They don't obviously say that it's not enough as they wanted, but that almost never is enough. And more importantly, we also timing-wise this is exactly where I was expecting the thing to kind of start kicking off. Without talking too much, we will be looking out for this. Know that things are happening. Be on the lookout in the coming days. I will update you on everything. If not with live videos, then at least on the community post. One thing that we need to discuss, though, is a situation that is happening here at Liman Pershi. Some people noted it. It's a tactical situation, so I don't really want to delve too much into this. But it's in this area around the village over here. So it's a very small part of the front line, but Russians have advanced there over the past weeks for a kilometer, and they took over a smaller village. And so people were worried that, oh, does it mean that Russia is now again back in attacking mode? No, it doesn't. It's a small village that was in a contested gray zone, technically. And when you study the map there in details, you realize that there is a river, and Ukrainians are actually fully controlling the river that is going on here, and they are also controlling the hills that are behind the river. So Russians have not undermined Ukrainian positions in any significant way. So it was just tactical movements, maybe taking out some of the forward scouting positions for Ukrainian, but it's nothing that is critical or dangerous for Ukraine, so be aware of that. And finally, to round up today's kind of overview of the map, the situation with Bakhmut. Now, over a week has passed from developments around Bakhmut, basically stating that Bakhmut is taken, and we've seen that Russian propaganda was just spouting nonsense and propaganda. Who would have thought? But basically is that they were promising us that as soon as Russians take Bakhmut, they are opening the gates to the operative direction, and they're free to push the forces. You remember that, right? Prigozhin was saying that as soon as the Bakhmut is taken, there is like hundreds and thousands of Russian forces that are well equipped and ready to go capture Sloviansk and Kramatorsk and whatnot. You remember that, right? But now we see that this is not what's happening, right? What is happening was exactly what I was telling you, and what the analysts that I'm following have been telling you, is that Bakhmut in itself was not very significant, that while the city might be captured right now, it didn't get any kind of specific strategic or operational tactical advantage for Russians. So with them capturing the city, suffering horrendous casualties, and that was just capturing a city with horrendous casualties. Also, a city is a big quotes because it's a pile of rubble by this point, right? So anyway, there's been plenty said about this. I don't want to delve too much. A couple of notes. There are movements by the Ukrainian side. We hear reporting that here and there, both in the north, both in the south, some kind of small tactical groups, they're advancing so far a little bit like 100, 200 meters. But so far, that is not significant in my perspective, because none of the major operational points. Remember, I was telling you in previous episodes, for example, around this position, like kind of towards the west of Klishivka, nothing of that sort has been captured. So far, whatever was happening around Bakhmut was just localized, small-scale operations. This is not a counteroffensive. It's good news. It showed a lot on how the Russian army would react to the offensive, but we're going to talk about it right away. One of the major things that I want to address that has been appearing here and there in the community was understanding that, hey, Russia has built a lot of these fortification lines, so it will be very, very costly for Ukraine to get through. And don't get me wrong, it will be. A lot of really good, dedicated heroes of Ukraine will definitely suffer casualties, suffer losses, they will die. It's going to be horrendous for Ukraine, but the situation is what it is. And with that said, we know that what matters is the quality of troops in these trenches. So as we've seen in the area around Bakhmut, that these troops are not that motivated. Now, the troops on the south side differ a bit, because recently there have been posted some interviews by the Russian journalists and so on that were able to talk with a lot of mobilized from that were in their area on the south. In the southern area, you'll notice that it didn't really had a lot of action from Ukrainian side. So a lot of those troops there, they have this childish ignorance on what the war is and how the war will treat them, because they've been sitting in their trenches seeing little to no action. And the red line through that interview, for example, that was being read, was that in their minds they were just eager to get to the front line to see some kind of actions, because they were bored the hell out of their trousers to just try to do something, because otherwise they've been literally just digging and setting up stuff and so on. And that is important, because if this is the preview, this is the thinking pattern of the people inside of those trenches in the south, then imagine the surprise that they will experience when suddenly they see the actual battle groups with Western tanks, with Western artillery, and what's going to be meeting these people is highly trained, highly motivated Ukrainian troops with a full-blown battle formations that are destroying their positions with artillery, with precise fire, and just literally, as we can see in Ukrainian new storming tactics used by the 3rd Assault Brigade, by the K2 Battalion, when tanks literally drive towards the trenches and just point blank completely demolish anything that is inside of those. It's gonna be a big surprise for them. So they're gonna find out that their eagerness to go to war, and I'm saying childish because this is not something that anyone that has ever gone to the front line has ever said. all of the people that I've talked to that went to the front lines, they say, yes, yes, this is hard, this is difficult and so on. But no one is like, oh yeah, like I cannot wait until I go back to battle. Like that's a silliness in a sense that I just want to get to the fighting. No, it's like people say I want to go to support my brothers and sisters that are fighting for Ukraine, but not in a sense that like, oh, I'm eager to just get into some kind of fighting. Now probably there are like one or two people, but the point is, you get me, right? That this is going to be a huge surprise, and if that's the quality of troops that awaits Ukrainians, again, huge possibilities for this offensive to be extremely successful. But we will see. I will not post the things in advance. As for the how would Ukraine, for example, get through the fortified positions, well, we already discussed the people inside of the trenches. It's going to be very important. But I'm also going to link in the description link to a video that was made by the channel OECGNV, where they have a nicely animated American style combined arms breach. Now the things, it's a nice 20-minute animation that explains step by step how breach would happen through the defensive lines that would, for example, Ukraine face. And we need to understand that, firstly, a lot of what in that video is stated, if the troops are not motivated in those trenches and they don't have enough support, then Ukrainian will have better time. If, for example, at some point they mention like weak defense positions, like for example trenches, we've seen some of the Ukrainian vehicles are just pouring stuff over trenches, so they don't need separate vehicles for those trenches. So obviously, as the video states at the end, is that any breach is not standardized, but it can give you a good perspective of what kind of challenges needed to be planned for the Ukrainian offensive in the south. So I really recommend you to watch it. It's excellent material. It's an excellent preview, and I think that will put us on kind of the same level of expectations what we would hope it would be. Remember, Ukraine doesn't have aviation in the area as much. So it will be most likely that instead of what aviation tasks were, it's going to be executed by high precision artillery such as HIMARS launchers or the M270. And then are the things that I believe we need to repeat once again, because while they're quite obvious, I think that it's very important that we both continue talking and repeating them to each other, but also in our all communications. So sometimes we kind of forget that what we're looking at, especially in a competition, like in a competition, but like this, it's not a competition that we're following, that this is war. It's not that there was like two somewhat equal parties that were, disputing about something, some kind of area or some kind of negotiation, trade rights, economics or something, and then suddenly they decided to use force to sort it out. No, it was one country that was complete juggernaut in a perspective how each saw it, and for many of the analysts were expecting, that decided to impose its will on the smaller neighbor that it thought is smaller and weaker. And by executing their force, what they really mean is go into the territory of that other country, kill the women, children, and everyone else in that country, take them prisoner, torture them in the torture chambers, and then put like a different agenda saying, oh, by the way, that's what Ukrainians did. That's what, like all of these tortures, that was Ukrainians doing it. We actually stop it. But Ukrainians fought so hard, so they were able to stop it. So we're not in a scenario, especially this is important when we're talking about these peaceniks that are offering all of these negotiation platforms, is that it's not two equal positions that we are discussing here. It's one supposedly bigger and more aggressive party that is trying to actively execute and actively kill the population of their neighbor. That is the thing that is happening on the ground. So whenever we're talking about the war, it is one side that started the war, that is only one side that is responsible for aggressively invading the neighbor and aggressively trying to kill and destroy the neighbors' lives. They were living peacefully. They were not doing anything to provoke the Russians. So Ukrainians are, in a sense, a complete victim. So when we equating victim and the aggressor, we already are out of our waters. So whatever discussions we're having, remember, Russia, the responsible party. Russia, the one that started it. Russia, the one that is just got their teeth caved in. And now it's kind of like, oh, I'm actually a victim and so on. And the fact that there is already some kind of balancing between Russia and Ukraine, it's like it's a very, very thin ice. We always, always like the fact that Ukraine is strong, good. The fact that we're making Ukraine even stronger, good. But it's a very thin ice that we must not never forget that it was Russia that thought that Ukraine is just weak and it can squeeze it and it can come, kill everyone, rape everyone, destroy everything, and get away with it. And to finish today off, I want to do it on a very positive note. Guys, I'm Latvian. And there's a thing that you need to know about Latvia. In Latvia, ice hockey is a sort of a religion. It's like a cult. And ice hockey is a really big thing. And right now there was ice hockey world championship that was ongoing. And obviously Latvia is a very small country. We're under 2 million people. So any achievement for us is a big deal. But today we got an achievement that I believe we were coming towards for 27 years. Latvia was able to score medals in the World Championship. We were able to get bronze medal, winning by a sliver over the United States of America. So sorry, the USA. In Latvia, we have a tradition whenever the country that we're playing with loses to Latvia. So Latvians go to the embassy of that country and they bring flowers. So sorry, US, but you're going to have to deal with the flowers around your embassy quite soon, I'm pretty sure. But yes, it's a great victory. It's something that it makes me completely euphoric. I believe the only time I saw the euphoria that I'm noticing right now in the Latvian circles was around the year 2000, when there was a world championship inside of Russia and Latvia won over Russia in the year 2000. That was kind of like the big kickoff for Latvian ice hockey journey. But it was a great year, dream team, completely incredible achievement, and it just makes me incredibly emotionally motivated. So I can only end this with a couple of words. Sarau Latvia! Slava Ukraini, guys. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.